Welcome to I'ma Talk About It. I'm Alicia E., empowerment coach and ancestral healer, and I'm here to teach you how to break generational cycles, self-advocate, and ascend to happiness without the guilt of wanting a better life for yourself. You don't have to choose the same path as those before you. You can choose a better way, your way. Because if we can each heal ourselves today, we can heal the world tomorrow together.
So, hi everyone. Welcome back. Today I have my lovely friend Emily here. If you hear us giggling randomly throughout the podcast, it's just we have some amazing projects that are coming to fruition right now, and we're a little distracted, but we wanted to speak to you all and share our journeys as entrepreneurs and what that has looked like for us and how we've really utilized our own spirituality to catapult ourselves into the future, but also manifest our wildest dreams at the same time. So thank you so much for joining today, Emily. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for, allowing me to come on here and, giving space to these stories, first off.
Yay.
You want me to just jump on?
Yeah, you can just tell
Description?
folks,
Okay.
who you are, what you do, your
Cool.
likes, your dislikes.
All the good stuff. Juicy details. So I am an owner of Bookstand Publishing, which is a self-publishing platform. We kind of work as the middle guy between having your book written and getting it actually published. So it can be a very confusing, overwhelming process for a lot of people. So our job is essentially to eliminate that confusion. You come to us with a manuscript that you've, poured your heart and soul into, and we handle the details. So we'll format the interior, we'll design a cover for you, we'll get it uploaded into our platform. We use Ingram, which is the largest wholesale distributor, to not only distribute your books, but they are the printer as well. So we use them as our company that gets your book on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, as well as potentially third-party international retailers as well. So we just kind of help make the system easier. And I stumbled into that. I really actually never saw myself as owning my own business. I have a master's degree in international marketing. I got my bachelor's in international relations and global studies. And when I graduated from my undergrad, I ended up, it was during the recession, and nobody knew what the fuck my degree meant. So nobody hired me. And I went through a really I was super depressed during that time. It was really hard because I thought I was going to become independent, and I ended up moving back home and living with my parents. And that was really challenging after having my independence in college. That was a really tough transition. Yeah. And then not being able to get, a job as well, just added on. And so I decided, I was like, well, I'm going to go back to school. And I'm actually going to back up, because part of my journey is that I actually listened to myself in college. Yeah. Because I hated my major. I thought when I came in undecided, and then I was in the honors dorm, and I ended up with a bunch of people who were in that program. And I was like, that is so cool. They're learning about all these cultures and the world, and they get to study abroad as part of their program. And I was like, that's amazing. That sounds so good. And then I got into it, and they weren't my people. And I knew they weren't my people. And yet I was in that phase of I made a decision and I have to stick with it. And I can't change my mind, because that's failing. And that's been part of my journey, is that it also, I think I was punishing myself. There's feeling. I realized that decision was like a masochistic choice that I did that just punished myself. It didn't hurt anybody else. It was just
Yeah.
that hurt. And for whatever reason, at the time, I didn't understand that that's what I was doing, but I stuck
Right.
with it. And towards the end of college, I kind of realized that marketing was something I was really interested in because
Mhm.
it blends the study of people and creativity and science all together.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I was like, oh my God, that's like, why did I do that? I was like, instead of this entire like, it was bad. I don't even know that like I told you this, but when I studied abroad, I ended up in a very abusive like host mom, and she was very
Mhm.
verbally abusive, and it, saying that I was like stupid and I was fat and that I wasn't like I couldn't like I was bad at speaking Spanish. And we lived in actually like one of the worst neighborhoods. I studied abroad in Buenos Aires, and I actually it was
Mhm.
like one of the worst neighborhoods. Like taxi cabs would be like, oh, why do you live there? Like you shouldn't live there. And like I actually had some that like wouldn't take us there. So it ended up I had a string of like really bad experiences there.
Mhm.
Some highlights, but a lot of like I came back and was just very dejected. And it was like, fuck, like just another like thing. And did that shake me enough to be like, you know what, like change? Like I know you're in your
Yeah.
dream, but like change. And I was like, nope, just come on, keep going. Like, so
No
I
need to look
did.
at the flag. It's fine.
And I graduated, hit the recession, couldn't get a job. So I go back to school and applied to a program that was to get my master's in international marketing. And in between that, I actually ended up landing like an internship on a film set. And
Wow.
that was incredible. And I really enjoyed it. And the people that I ended up connecting with were incredible. And they brought me on for a second film that they did before I was going back to school. So I
Mhm.
worked on a couple of sets as a assistant prop master and then also as a set designer for it. So that was like a fun detour. As I've been on my journey, it's like, what if I had made the choice again to like scrap going to grad school and had followed that path because they loved
Yeah.
me and they would have like taken me on. They were working on projects like the Jurassic World series and like lots of big
Yeah.
projects. So my life, had I made the decision at that point, being like, I really like these people, I'm enjoying this work,
Yeah.
what if I just don't go back to school? And I was like, I'm going to school.
There's society's
Yeah,
mindset just coming all in.
yeah, so much. So it was like, okay, so I went to school and had a lot of really good times. It was a 1 year program, so it was a really intense, like hit the ground running and finished within a year.
Yeah.
And I came out and couldn't get a job. I struggled and it took me almost a year, about like 8 months to get a job. And then I landed in in a job that was like marketing for a sparkling wine company. And I
Mm.
loved the entire premise of it. But again, I landed in a very abusive boss situation where I was getting screamed at on the phone. Like I was there for a total of 4 months and I actually was losing my hair. Like it was just falling out all over the place. And I had really like PTSD once I left with my phone ringing. It took me about a year for my heart not to skyrocket every time my phone came in, and I kept it on silent for like a really long time because just any noise coming from it was very triggering for me. And I ended up working at a media agency for almost 5 years, and I met a lot of really great people. I got to work with some great clients, and that was really fun. And then, due to like a restructuring, I ended up losing that job, and it took me then, well, the restructuring happened in June of 2019. And
Mhm.
so then, COVID came in at the beginning of 2020, which really put a damper on the job market for me. And I just struggled again. And I was like, what am I going to like? Why is none of this working out? Like, this shouldn't be this hard. I really didn't understand it. So I started going, okay, like, what about my own business? Because I don't have to apply to, like, I don't have to send applications. I don't have to get judged by anybody else on
Mhm.
what I want to do, like, if I find my own business. So I actually started looking. I was like, what if I can buy like an used bookstore? I've always loved reading and I've always loved books. And I was like, that would be a really fun thing. And
Yeah.
I found a couple and I was like, awesome, let's go. And then they actually ended up being bought by the time like I was looking. And so I was like, okay, that's not it.
Universe was like,
Yeah.
not that one. No.
And then I came across Bookstand Publishing and it was for sale from the previous owner. And he had actually bought it back in 2006 from an owner prior to him. So the business
Mm.
has been around for, I think we're coming up probably close to almost 20 years at this point, I
Oh,
think.
wow.
So it's been around a really long time. And it just all clicked into place. Like as I was talking to the previous owner, he was like, yeah, I actually had a previous buyer. It was pretty much all set to go earlier in 2020, and then it fell through. So I was like, well, there's a sign because it might
Mhm.
not have been available, and
Right.
now it is. And I was fortunate enough to have my family support who loaned me the money to be able to do the initial down payment on it. And then with the owner, I negotiated to do a note payment. So I paid him a monthly amount. It's essentially like a mortgage for a
Yeah.
house for the business. And so that was done for 3 years. So as of September of this year, I had officially finished paying it off. So now I own my business free and clear now, which is
Yay.
very
Yeah.
exciting.
Congrats.
Thanks. And so that was like I jumped headfirst into business, like it self-publishing. I had absolutely like
Yeah.
no idea like what I was doing. I didn't have a background in it. I knew, I mean, like I said, I loved reading. I had looked at publishing at one point, trying to pivot into it, far back, and that didn't work out. And so I mean, I knew enough about it and I
Right.
trusted my skills enough to figure it out, and I did. And I kind of just, I mean, everything was brand new and figuring out, and I was coming in with projects that were already in the middle of being completed. So
Yeah.
I actually hit the ground running with like, I think we had like, I don't know, 6 or 7 projects that they were in the middle
Oh,
of
wow.
when I purchased it.
I love that.
It
Everything.
was,
Oh, no, go ahead.
no, go for it.
No, I mean, it just sounds like so I mean, you bring up so many interesting things. Like the first one just being how like so many of us have a tendency to stay in situations a little bit too long, even if our soul and our energy is like wanting to have the change, needing the change, like everything around us is like kind of being torn down. We're having multiple tower moments, but there's still that little voice in our head that's like, if you change, it's going to negatively impact somebody. And you've done this commitment, so you're not allowed to be happy. Like, even though we couldn't have seen it back then, because I went through something similar, like, it's wild how strong that voice can be and how it's been so ingrained to us, even as a society, to like not speak up for ourselves, not choose ourselves, that it becomes this automatic voice that kind of guides us through our life, where it's like, the voice of the oppressor becomes our own. Like we then oppress ourselves because of the oppressor and we carry it on and then we pass it on. And I love that you shared that. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through those experiences. And I know that, we've talked pretty openly about being in really rough situations, even like in college and after college and now as like entrepreneurs, and like how it's shaped us, but still desiring that nobody have to go through those experiences. So I guess like fast forwarding to where you are today, because you're like fucking killing it. Like, how is it that you've shifted your mindset? Because I know we've talked about this before, right? Like, how have you, or have you been able to shift your mindset to a place where you're more comfortable with change, or like open to change? And like, what have you done for yourself? Like, do you think your spirituality played a part in that? Like, you can answer it however you want, but like, how has your mindset kind of shifted from where you were at before to now?
Yeah. Well, spirituality 100% played a part in it. I hit rock bottom. That's what started for me. I was depressed. I was failing. I wasn't, I guess to myself, I was failing. I wasn't, my interest in the business was gone, and I couldn't get myself to do what I needed to do to keep going. And I knew that I was just going to keep spiraling. So I actually first started this journey that's been a little bit of a year and a half now, really intensive journey. I came across the Enneagram, and that's what started it, was going, oh, this feels like me, like this is what I'm doing. So I actually sought out an Enneagram therapist specifically, and it was incredible, and it started my journey. Like, that was kind of where it started. And then things got better mentally for me, and then they didn't, because I then decided my business was struggling, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm not making enough money. This isn't working. I don't know what to do. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna look for another job, because this isn't, that's the easiest option at this point, because I really don't want to close our doors. I didn't want, like, we have over 1,500 authors that have published with us that are available, and I want to stay open for them so that their stories don't get taken away, so that they get to stay, and people can hopefully come across them and, connect with those stories. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to look for a job. And jobs are very triggering, have been very triggering for me in the past. It brings up not feeling enough, my perfectionism, not being worthy of getting paid what I thought I deserved, what I needed to climb out of the debt that I had accumulated from trying to keep the business afloat. I pulled money from credit cards in order to put money into the business. Like, I just racked up my debt in order to do that. And so it just got worse. And so I've spent a year looking for a new job. And every time I've probably submitted over 500 applications for jobs. And it got to the point a few months ago where it's like, I don't fucking understand this. Like, how can nobody see my worth? And how can I not be getting any of these? Like, I'd interview occasionally, and I got really close to one, and then the person who they were replacing decided to come back. Like, weird things where, like, it should have been my job, like, stuff was happening, and it was like, what the fuck? Like, how is this happening? And so that led me diving really deep into how I was approaching life, because I was looking for meaning for why this was happening. Like, how could I be struggling this much? Like, I thought I was coming from a place of like love, trying to keep this business afloat, and it felt like the right thing. And I just was struggling, and nothing was coming that to help me. And I felt so alone and isolated. And it was like, there has to be more than this, because I'm done. Like, I really was at the point where it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this life thing is not for me anymore. And I saw you, that you were the start of it for me. So you offered the free fly with me sessions that when you very first started. And our session opened the door because I connected with my inner child for the first time ever. And it unlocked a piece that I didn't even know I needed. And your message, like what came up in the cards was positive, that like, I mean, I had the tower, I had the chariot, I had the star, like I had all these really big cards. Like if you keep going, shit is going to change, and you just have to keep going. And it was life-changing because that our session was on the very first day of the Women's World Cup. And that for me, I have a muscle disease. I had a muscle disease.
Yeah, there we go.
That prevented me from playing soccer, and that was my passion. That's where I thought that was my dream career, was to be a professional, women's soccer player. And I was good enough to do it, and yet my body said no. And since that happened in high school, I've been lost. So all of these have led to this point in time. And the fact that our session was on the start of the Women's World Cup was another life-changing, because it was the first time that I watched them play and I wasn't filled with heartbreak and sadness and anger and resentment that I wasn't there, like that wasn't my path in life. And that it wasn't my path in life on purpose. Like that wasn't what I was put on this planet this go around to do. And so I just started delving, like I jumped in and was like, okay, tarot, like I bought my first tarot deck, and I just started like going, what do I need to know? How do I do this? And, how do I keep going? And it just slowly built that my connection with myself again, because I had stopped listening to everything and except my mind, and my mind was filled with so much hate towards myself that I couldn't see beyond it. And we just through these different steps, I don't even recognize who I was 2 months ago, because I'm in such a drastically different place.
Yeah. I like, first, thank you for sharing that story, because it's such a powerful one. And I remember that session so clearly, because the guide that was like trying to come in was so present. Like like some I like don't always remember, but like yours was like boom, like I'm coming. And like as you were talking and like you were releasing and you were being vulnerable, and we were like taking you on that quest, and we were ascending you, doing all these things, and like we were sharing in these messages, they were like, no, I need her to know that we are here. And they were like kept showing up, and I just remember being like, whoa like and I'm like, Emily, they've got their arms like out wide to you, ready to like embrace you. And I remember telling you to like verbalize it, like speak to them out loud, and like tell them that you give them permission to show up, like you give them permission to be in your life and to help you and to guide you. And I remember you said that you were sitting outside, and then you were like talking, and then a butterfly came to you. And so I was like, yes. I was like, it always brings me so much joy, because we go our entire lives not thinking about the one portion of our life and like our childhood that literally shaped us. And I always say, like we have to do inner child work. Like there is no avoiding it. Like if we are to move forward, and if we are to release our fears and heal our trauma and heal our ancestors, like how else is a child supposed to process like all of the things that have happened, right? Like we were children, we didn't have the verbiage or the emotional capacity or understanding to like say like, hey, this is what's going on. And it's very complex. And like, like it's rare that kids can do that. And then you need time to process that. And that's why like we also do it as an adult. And I love that you invited that journey for yourself, because you could have decided to not do a fly with me session. Like nobody made you, show up, but you were like, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm just going to be open and I'm going to receive it. And you're like freaking flourishing. And you kind of hinted at it, but like you tell them about your body. I'm like, it's not my story to share. It's not my story to share. Tell them about it. Tell them.
Okay. So through this journey, I'm gonna get to that, but
Okay,
I want to touch on this real quick because it's really important. And I think more people, especially I am a white woman in our society, and part of this journey was doing anti-racism work. That was really important to me, and really delving into that because I had shame around being a white person. And it took, because of the horrors that are happening currently and have happened in the past against pretty much every other group of people on this planet. And I was giving into the shame. It kept me from taking action. My privilege allowed me to hide from it. And I no longer wanted to live like that. That's not going to ever help anybody. It wasn't actually living into my purpose either. And so I picked up books. And one of the most crucial books that I picked up was called We'll All Be Free by Caroline J. Sumlin. And she talks about how white supremacy, colonialism, capitalism feed on this idea of perfectionism, of not being enough. And these systems are in place to keep us where we currently are, all of us, because if there is a single group of us that is not free, then none of us are free because we're all held under the same systems. And she speaks about it with such love and kindness and compassion, and knowing that it is a complex issue, and yet at the same time it's not, because it really is just all about our humanity at the end of the day. Like, we all are human, and the color of our skin shouldn't dictate anything, because we're all souls here just moving through life. And that was a really massive part of the shift, was letting go of the shame and disconnecting, unlearning white supremacy and unlearning colonialism and capitalism and breaking away from those things. And it's an ongoing journey. It forever will be, because I am a white woman, and that's the perspective that I'm traveling in this life through. And it is just a constant journey, but I couldn't continue the path I was on without doing this work as well. Like, they went hand in hand, not just for my, like the inner child work, but this anti-racism work as well. Mm-hmm. And another great book, if you're looking, which blends those two topics together, spirituality and anti-racism, is called The Altar Within by Juliet Diaz. And it's another beautiful work where she talks about how spirituality has been colonized and it isn't what it's supposed to be. And it's been manipulated and, corrupted, and and it's just another beautiful book. So I highly recommend that. That was another one that was part of this journey. And so in doing all of this really deep work, I went to a spiritual fair where you were at and got to see your lovely face. And in doing that, I came across Yolanda Lewis, and she owns a business called Trinity Holistic Hypnosis. And I just immediately felt safe and connected with her. And I did a short, like 20-minute session that was like a heart connection. And it was another pivotal, life-changing moment for me, where I got to heal like my 4-year-old self who really needed help. And it was pivotal. And I knew that I'd be working with her, which leads me now to the question you posed about my body and what came from it. So fast forward, and I just was working with Yolanda, and I did my very first hypnotherapy session with her. And I had no idea what was going to happen. What I really thought I was really going to talk to my ancestors. I thought that was the direction it was going to go. And what ended up coming to the forefront was that I had 8 other energies that were tied to me from the time I was born. I had all of these. I had an old man who had died in a car crash. I had a couple who had died in a car crash. I had a murderer tied to me. I had a woman who overdosed and left her 3 children in doing so. And I had somebody who was shot, and I had all of these really intense energies that were tied. And so as in my session, we spoke to each of them, and we, helped send them and, talk to them, like, who did you leave behind? What happened? And then one of the questions was, how have you been impacting Emily? And all of them were pretty much for the negative in some way, like they were impacting like my emotions, like I have had lots of suicidal thoughts, over the years. Like that was coming from Tiana, who had overdosed, and one of them said that they had impacted my muscles. And so we, released them and sent them back so they can now live their best, lives on the other side, and no longer are tied to this human realm that we're in. And that in and of itself was massive. Yolanda had said that she had never worked with anybody that had 8 energies tied. Apparently that's a lot. Like most people, like 2 is a lot if you have them. So let alone 8. And when I was coming out of it, like acclimating to this new body that I was existing in, because I no longer had 8 other entities tied to me that were impacting. So I have now been living a month of, do I like these foods still? Like, does this taste the same as it used to?
Yeah.
Like, I haven't ever had allergies, but I've been like certain wines with higher sulfates give me headaches, and I've had issues. And I discovered recently that a wine that used to do that doesn't do that anymore, to me.
Wild.
So that was, one of the things, but like my whole life changed, and all of a sudden I was just me. And one of the first things that I realized happened was that I had cured my muscle disease in doing this.
I was like, I can't believe she says it.
And it still feels surreal to say that I don't have it anymore. I get super emotional talking about it, because I spent 34 years, my entire life was dictated to it, from, like carrying groceries in could create a minor like attack for me, or, like walking, and I just eliminate, like there were so many things in my life that I never thought I was ever going to be able to do, because it was that debilitating with things. Like I can walk, but I can't walk too fast, and it can't be in heat, and there are lots of things. And just, like even down to I didn't do my hair in fancy styles because I couldn't keep my hands up long enough to like braid my hair, really. Like it was, that down to things like that. And all of a sudden, after doing that session, I can do, I can do whatever I want now. And learning to exist in a body that can do that, and being kind to myself, because I went too hard on an exercise video and paid the price for it.
I remember you telling me that. I also did the same thing that same day. So same page.
So it's, but I get to do things. I'm doing things that I have never ever been able to do in my life recently, and it'll just continue to get better. And for, as I've expressed to Yolanda, I will forever be grateful to her for creating a space that made me feel safe. And I'm grateful for myself for being willing to take that journey, because it was scary as all get out, and I didn't know what was going to come up and what was going to happen. And it was a fucking miracle. I still I don't know, there just aren't even words. I just don't even really believe that it happened, and yet I'm walking proof that it happened.
Yeah, it's so fucking wild. It's giving me chills again every time I hear it. And I don't think that people talk enough about the impact of working with energy in general, or working with ancestors or your own body.
Yeah.
Even if you look at it through a scientific lens, everything is made of energy. And so energy is constantly interacting with other energy. And so things will become attached, and it works the same way in spirituality. Same thing with spirits attached to you, different lineages, timelines. Time doesn't really exist. So everything happens at once. And we're definitely need to put Yolanda's information in the show notes, because they are fucking powerful, and she's just a very kind soul. And I've talked to her many, many, many times. And I want to make sure that people can also meet with her as well. Yeah. But you have been on such a journey, and it just goes to show what really happens when you truly commit to taking care of yourself, down to you were meditating, you were releasing, you were loving yourself, you were open to not literally going on the journey. And what was hilarious is that, it was my first new earth event by myself, because usually my partner was there, and you're like, me and my sister are coming. And then I cried, and then we were crying, and then it was all this releasing. But then that was the perfect environment for you to meet Yolanda. And then it's been such a beautiful journey, because when you start to just let go of trying to plan everything in your life, the universe and your guides and your ancestors are kind of there to usher you through. And it seems like freaky alignment, freakish timing, but they're doing it on purpose to help you, right? You never would have imagined curing this disease that was in you. And now we're starting to see more studies coming out where people do have the power to heal their body with meditation, with energy work. And I don't think it's any coincidence that you're seeing more and more healers kind of pop out of the woodworks, because it's so needed, right? We're all being awakened. We're all being called to do it. You're a healer. That's why you're also getting healed. It's just a beautiful chain of events. And also just really beautiful that Yolanda is the type of healer, which I freaking love, to be able to take the spirits or energies or entities that were with you and to usher them into the next life, into their peace and their happiness, because not a lot of healers do that. Sometimes they will remove things, but then they don't help the soul move on or put them to rest, or because sometimes souls will get stuck in a certain stage of their life, right? That was why you were experiencing all of that muscle issues and disease, because they're stuck on a loop. And so really good healers, really ethical healers, will go in and take that person out, get them out of their loop, and then send them on to be happy. And so it's just really fucking cool that the fact that you were open to it, you not only physically healed your body, and I also want to say, because we're going to get into manifestation next, okay, but you physically healed your body, and you were able to heal other energies as well, which is also going to heal their own line. So it's like, it's very important that we're really intentional about how we show up for ourselves, even if it's not in the 3D realm, but like loving each other. And, you know, you did the anti-racism work, which is so important. And so that's going to change for your lineage and people hearing this podcast. Like, it's such a ripple effect. And I just wanted to draw a lot of attention to that because spirituality, like you said, it needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of attention, and it's time that we do that. And seeing the events that are happening globally, I think it's bringing even more of an intense lens onto the truth of what people need and how we need to change and come together as a collective and like really do the healing so we can show up and help the world, right? Like, and I know that's something that you and I have really aligned on of, you know, yes, we perhaps will have our 9 to 5s and, you know, like, and there's no shade with having a 9 to 5 as an entrepreneur, which I know we wanted to talk about. Right. And it's like, but we're also going to move forward with our gifts and our healing so we can make a larger impact. And that's why, you know, we'll be like, we're going to buckle the hell down for a week and we're going to like dig into our shadow, like release it and then like fly forward so we can really start changing the world. And so I just want to say, like, it's such an honorable thing to do. And I'm so glad you're sharing that story because I think a lot of people need to hear that and understand that you have to be intentional about it. Like like we can't change the world unless you choose to change yourself. Like you have to consciously make that decision and go towards it. And I think a lot of people, since you mentioned privilege, have had the privilege to opt out. Like we're in the United States, we do have the privilege to opt out because we're not there, right? Like, so it's like, we need to understand that just because we can have access to that privilege doesn't mean that we should take it. Like, you know, like we need to not do that anymore so we can get up and save these people and like literally help the world. Like enough is enough. So I just wanted to touch on that because I do want to talk about like where you're at with your manifesting and what has really come from your healing, but wasn't sure if you needed to add anything.
No, I love all of that. Like you said, I think the key piece to making the world better is your own healing, because even with the best intentions, if you haven't done your own healing, you're going to continue the harm because you haven't done your work. And it's that simple. And that's it. And it's a lifelong journey. Like this isn't like something that I get to just because now I've spent, a handful of months or a handful of years doing that, I get to stop doing. This is like it's a lifelong commitment because I am human. And at some point I probably am going to make a mistake and I'm, going to need to like go, okay, I've learned it and move on. And that's understanding that it's okay to have that happen is part of that healing, because white supremacy tells us you have to be perfect. And if you can't be perfect, don't even bother trying. And that does nobody any good. It doesn't help. And so yeah, I think that was it to,
Oh, I love
that. Up here. Sorry.
I'm like,
don't get me started. I can go.
I know. I'm like, for anybody who doesn't know us, like Emily and I will get real riled up and we're being like, we're taking on the world right now, which is where our energy has been at. So talk to us about where your life is right now, what's been going on for you, because I do want to bring in some manifestation stuff and like how you've really grown your spirituality, because the wildest things have been happening. And I think people would love to hear about it. As someone, like, I consider you someone who is very spiritual, but also an activist and like an entrepreneur and all of these other things. But I think the three main things, like you're very spiritual, you also have your craft and your ancestor work, and you have your business, but you're an activist, like, and you can see that from your page, like you're constantly sharing resources for people to wake the fuck up. So it's like, talk to us about like where you're at right now with your spirituality and manifesting and whatever comes to your heart. You know, we keep it open.
Well, I now know why I never got a job. So that's what's come to fruition in the last week is I know why every single door closed, because it's what pushed me onto that journey. Had I gotten a job 6 months ago, I wouldn't have been in this moment right now. And the magic that I am now experiencing on a daily basis is worth the pain of the last 34 years, because I've now seen what is in store for me in the future and how happy and joyous and peaceful, and that I can accept love and I can give love. And that's what my future holds because of this past path that I've taken. And so I now am going to, like, my business is like, I'm still working on the business. That's going to stay. We have kind of a new business that's coming in to plan. There's a move happening that we're going to, that's going to come in and is part of that healing journey that we're on. And I mean, it just comes down to the fact that that's why all of these doors have stayed closed. So I think with the manifestation, sorry, I like had to pause there to like get like, where did I want to go with that?
Yeah, no, do whatever you want.
I don't know.
Manifestations. Okay, how about this?
Yeah.
Entrepreneur.
There's so much. I don't even know. Now, like,
I'm trying to figure out what to talk about, because for anybody who's listening, Emily and I work together very closely, and we have a really amazing project coming. And so we're like, how do we talk about this until it's ready? So we're getting a little bit choppy, but I guess maybe we can talk about, since a lot of entrepreneurs are wanting to manifest their wildest dreams, we're also in a giant portal right now between November and February. There's also accelerated manifestation. So what kind of signs and things have you gotten, or like you want to talk about, that can maybe help someone recognize their own manifestations and to like be comfortable sitting in, like, because I know the job situation has happened for so many people, and it's also happened for me, being comfortable in that energy and really shifting towards the synchronicities and following them, right? Like, what, like anything you want to talk about in that realm?
Okay. I think the first thing is doing the work to get clear about what you're wanting. So it feels, I have struggled with so long with like, what do I really want? Like, do I need to know exactly what this like house looks like, or that I want to manifest? Do I need to know like what my exact partner looks like, or like any, like my ideal job? But I love doing so many different things. Like, I love learning. I love trying new things. So it was always overwhelming when somebody was like, in order to manifest, you have to get really specific. And I was like, I don't know what that looks like. Stop telling me I have to get specific.
Yeah.
But it comes down to finding what like sets your soul on fire a little bit. Like, when you think of like, if you could wave your magic wand and do something, what does that look like? Like, if you immediately, like, if you were like, I want to do X, Y, and Z, and you the next day woke up with the right skills, the right like community, the right everything just lined up, what would you do? And if what you're doing right now is that, then perfect. Now lean into that even more. And like, how do you grow it? Whatever that is, how do you expand on that? If you're not doing it, what does that look like? What piece of that is driving it? And then the biggest thing and the hardest thing for me was the surrender manifestation, leaning into surrender manifestation, which is once you have some clarity and you write it down. I always find writing things down to be the most helpful. It helps solidify it for me. And you get clear, and then you have to surrender. You have to go, I create, actually a manifestation that I worked on was I wanted to know what my next steps were and kind of where my future was going to go by the 15th of November. And in the last couple of days, once I got clear with that, the last 2 days have made it very clear what the next steps I need to do are. And that's how fast it can work sometimes. Sometimes it might not kick in that fast, but it did this time. And I now am very clear on what I need to do. And part of it is because I leaned in. So signs for me have been like, I have an app that gives me manifest affirmations, maybe
affirmations.
And they just are lining up perfectly with what's happening. My decks, like I have a couple oracle decks and they just keep coming. Like today I pulled I am receptive, so it's like like it's little things like that. Like pay attention. Is there like a key phrase that keeps popping up? Wild has like the last like 2.5 weeks for me. Wild is showing up everywhere. I'm saying it a lot. It's coming up in phrases, in books, like it's just there. One of the symbols too, Persephone has been something. So I'm seeing a lot of pomegranates.
Yeah.
Foxes, butterflies.
Yeah, someone literally gave you pomegranates.
Yeah, I got handed 3 pomegranates. The number 3 for me too is really powerful. And that shows up a lot in all the time. So it starts with like paying attention. So the clarity comes because then it allows you to look at things, right? It changes your perspective on it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you go, okay, this is what I'm going towards. And then, say you're like wanting to open your own design business. Okay. Well, all of a sudden you like an ad pops through, like how to design your own business, or like, there's this like, person pops up in your email address, or you get like something comes through, a friend posts about something on their account that's about design, and you start seeing the signs coming through, and you lean into the fact that you've now declared what you wanted. So you have to let the universe do its work.
Yeah.
You have to freaking let go, and letting go is so hard. So fucking hard. And yet it's where all the magic is. And I wouldn't change any of it because I've leaned in hard this last week into letting go. I was told I would have a job and it was going to be potentially in this like location. And in this location is now where I don't know if this job is going to come through, but something else is happening in this location, and it came through real fast. And it's, like it just, when you lean in is really where the magic happens. It really starts to come, and it just makes life more fun. I've spent 34 years hating life, literally feeling like, what is the purpose? How is this all there is? This is terrible. It's awful. Like people hurt all the time. Like people, I've been struggling to survive for 34 years and never felt safe and never felt comfortable really until right now. And even though there's so much up in the air, like I feel safe because I'm trusting that my purpose is going to propel me into these next steps, and I'm taken care of by the universe, by my ancestors, by my guides. my galactic team. Like there are so many people who are a part of this process, and I know that
They creeped me out.
stop.
You can keep going. I don't know what just happened. Keep going.
Okay.
My camera was like, I'm too hot.
But it just is easy to lean into it. And now, like it's easier. Every day it gets easier because it's important to me to continue, because I'm seeing the magic. I'm seeing the synchronicities. You and me, I can't wait for us to be able to share, like, when we're on the other side of this, all the shit that lined up and how it all came together, because it's fucking it's wild.
It
It's
makes you want to pass out.
wild. Like there isn't another way for it, and like word for it. And it just, if we like, when we tell the story, it's gonna sound crazy. Like it's gonna sound fucking crazy.
Yeah,
And
I know.
it's real. It's so real. And I never saw this as my life, and my life is already better than it has ever been. And most of the things that are coming haven't even like happened yet. And it's still so much better.
Yeah. I love how you mentioned just like all of the small synchronicities that'll help you recognize the bigger synchronicities. Cause sometimes like the universe will scream at you, and sometimes it's like really fucking subtle, but you have to, like, when you talk about surrendering and, you know, surrender manifestation, like you have to let go of almost seeing the world. Like, I don't know how to explain it. You know what I mean? Like you have to be able to zoom out and like start to realize that there's going to be messages in different places. And like sometimes they'll be really obvious, like when we were at New Earth and then that producer walks up and then we're, you know, like all of us are like, huh? Like, what the hell is this? Right. And then it like kept evolving and evolving and evolving. And then, you know, we're pulling cards and, you know, it'll be like 555 and change and like you're making the right decision. And then the song will be about like new beginnings. And so we're like, okay, like we just need to keep going. We have to keep believing and keep healing. And I think what's been so important on like this manifestation journey is this, that we do have each other. So like having a community that you can actually talk to about it is really important because, you know, for example, like, you know, we kept getting messages that we needed to tap into our intuition and like slow down and like do these things. And then, you know, my good friend Azure, you know, sent me this picture and it was the high priestess. And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And so then I like sent her a screenshot of my phone that I literally had gotten a message from someone on Telegram and it said the high priestess. And then we did that reading and then out comes the high priestess. And then you were talking about the high priestess and I was like, okay, we need to sit down and like really focus. And it becomes like really fun and also reassuring that things are changing around you. Because I think that's what is the hardest part in terms of surrendering and like trusting that everything's going to work out okay, is that your like external reality doesn't quite change until it does. Like literally, like you and I and like some of my other friends, I'm like, this is why we're all getting pieced together like this. And, you know, we were talking about needing tech help. And then my tech friend is like, hi, you know, and I haven't talked to them in literal months. And so it's like the universe just starts like putting these things out for you. But the fact that you and I can talk to each other and talk to each other on the days where we're like, damn, like my ego is really kicking my ass right now. And like, I don't know what to do about it. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to meditate. And then you and I can talk about it. Cause, you know, and I'll just share a little bit about the meeting we had recently of like, we got off the call and I had told you, you know, like my ego had shifted in and I started to feel like my worth was going down. Like I was like I didn't feel good enough to be in that call for very specific reasons. And then you were like, that's wild, because I had felt like I couldn't be in the call because I don't feel like my spiritual gifts are like where, and then we were able to like have that exchange of like, we're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, so valuable, like you're so fucking psyched, like all these things. And so it's so great when you can have community around you that is on the same page, in the sense that they're there to love you in like an unconditional sense, because then you can elevate together and have that security that you and I have, or that, you know, like I have with Meg, and now you have with Karina, and like all these other healers and all these like women who are coming together and like, no, we're going to forge our own path. Like we were able to manifest that and found that. And now we have people to also lean on, just like they can lean on us and do amazing things and manifest at the same time a really big fucking opportunity. Which like, I'm just like, take a deep breath, Alicia, take a deep breath. And it's going to be so cool. And, you know, like what's been happening for me is, you know, and I'll share a little bit about how messages come to me. It's sometimes they're literal, like things in my body where they'll just drop in, like how I was telling you about, which I'm okay sharing because I've shared it before, that I've been wanting to write a book and all these things. And then I was sitting there and I was like, oh, Emily, my book, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wait, I think it's going to be a movie or something like that, like something cool, you know? And then you're like, okay, you know, I was like, it just popped in my head. And then I talked to my friend Karina. She was like, oh my God, we need to make it into a movie, because Karina does indie film. And so then it's like, you know, all these fun things start to happen. And what's also kind of neat is that the universe can also shift things. Like it's like, maybe they say that now, but then it shifts and evolves into something else, because your energy starts to change and it starts to elevate. And then they give you a different opportunity that's, you're like, what do I decide? I've got all these opportunities. So it's just like a really fun and beautiful, you know, place to be in, especially because we're all creative. Like, and we're not allowing our ego to tell us no anymore. And we're not accepting it from society and like following those norms anymore. And, you know, like, and just going back to the 9 to 5, just how, you know, we had talked about getting 9 to 5s and like also honoring the fact that we were okay with having that stability and wanted that stability. And it's okay to be on that journey as an entrepreneur, because you can have a 9 to 5 and still do things that you love, just like people have a 9 to 5 and have a weekend. So, you know, I think a lot of entrepreneurs also carry a lot of shame with like being in the workplace. But, you know, even for myself, it wasn't like I had planned to leave my job and then all of a sudden, you know, I was like, I'm going to start my business. It was like, no, I was in my 9 to 5 and then an idea popped up and then I started my business, and then shit went down at my job. And then I went to another job. And so I, you know, it was like, you can do 2 things at once and you can still manifest stuff that way. And then sometimes the universe will start shutting doors on you until you like go towards like where you're meant to be, because you start like radiating so largely and they're like, now we're just gonna and like we're just gonna kick you out the door. But I think it's just really cool too to share, you know, just how signs show up. And I know that at every New Earth event that I've been at, like that producer, like people just show up, physical people show up to deliver messages, which I've never seen before. Shocking, but it's also kind of fun, you know, and you're like, I see you, ancestors, or like, I see you, universe, you know, you've really got my back, and you've got the back of all these other people. And like being in those spaces, even that you got to meet Yolanda in, it's like you feel so safe because people are fully energetically open to receiving blessings and love and are literally interested in being there for each other. So it was like we could have those conversations of like, oh my gosh, life is so magical, isn't it? And then you like realize you're talking to this person and they have like a giant butterfly tattoo and you're like, gosh, you know, it like becomes an addiction and you're like, I love life, and I didn't know life could be like this. And same thing, like, life can really knock you down, but when you start to surrender and find that joy within yourself, like, it's like literally possibilities are endless. And yeah, it's just such a magical journey. I was trying to think, like, no, I feel like those are all the like biggest manifestations that have really happened. But and like what we're also doing is, we have also been wanting to improve on our health, and like our mental health and our physical health. So we're talking with each other and like really encouraging each other every single morning, because we're reframing our mindset and reframing our energy. And so we're like sending all these long audio messages, and we're like, like, I'm on my walk today and it's so great, and I like this butterfly. And then we're like, I have all these ideas, I'm gonna put them on the board that we have, and like, it's like that's how it is every morning. So that it's that's how our energy is. And then we're like, okay, good night.
Yeah.
Over now.
And then we pass out.
We pass out, and then we're like, oh my gosh, you know what happened? It's like it just becomes so contagious. But honestly, like, I just encourage everybody who's listening to just freaking follow the signs, because you will literally be the happiest person. And trust me, you will never laugh as hard as like you've laughed in your whole life. Like, I know you mentioned that recently, and because the signs become so blatant that you're like, I get it. Okay?
Like, I love it. Like, I don't want them to stop. Like, I want them to keep going. I'm asking them, like, keep the sides. Like, it makes me feel good. Like, I like it. So.
And you'll be like, oh, I just got this. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And I'm like, this person just told me a joke. This is hilarious. And I'm like, oh, they sent me that sign already and I missed it.
I do want to just touch real fast on that stepping into this joy is beautiful, because it allows you to give space, to leave space for the pain and the hurt of other people, because I want it in the world that we're living in right now. There is so much pain and suffering, and it feels very overwhelming on how do we make a difference? How do we change what's happening? And we're, as an individual person, our impact is on a smaller scale. But if you can lean into the joy and lean into these small things that actually make life worth continuing to push and to live for, then you can leave space for that pain and the suffering that's happening to multiple groups of people right now. And you get to step up even more. Like, it really, like, I think that's one of the biggest shifts that's happened for me, is like in finding the magic and the joy and the fun of everyday life. I have more energy and more ability to actually step up and be the voice for people that don't have voices, or to share, or to sit in those spaces and to face what's happening, rather than wanting to hide because I'm in such a negative space myself. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces of this puzzle that I've like come to realize, because I've never existed in this space before. Like, this is brand new to like have these feelings, like to live in joy and to find and to think life is fun. And I know it sounds weird given what's happening, but how we're going to heal, I believe, is in helping everybody get to that level. And that, because then we all have space to continue to stand up for when things happen, right? To like be the voice, and to, do the protests, and to fight, and to do what's right, and to break from the chains that our world and our society has placed on every single one of us. And there's so much beauty in that, and that in doing so, we get to create a community that is striving to become better than we have been.
Yes. Thank you so much for adding that in. And it just makes me think of also like how complex like manifesting is, because you do have to have that heightened sense of joy and love, like that high frequency. And like you're saying, like you do need to have the other space so that, you know, we can keep moving forward and acknowledge the pain and help make an impact and go out and fight. And we also need to be able to have that space where we can guide ourselves or be guided with love. Like the right energy needs to be able to come forward, but we have to be able to find it within ourselves. And I think what you're saying is, it's just such a beautiful like reflection, because it's really true. And I think that like while we are having this fun, you know, like all of this is coming down to what we are about to bring into the world, that are it's going to help thousands of people. Like it's going to keep people from doing what they're doing internationally with, you know, the genocide and everything. And so I think there's also like a sense of permission that needs to be given to women to connect on like a loving and open and joyful way, so we can collaborate and like you're saying, you know, get together and like dream and like go out and fight and like do what we can, boots on the ground, but also remember that we can't manifest the impact that we want in the world from a really low vibrational place. Like you were saying, you know, like we can't go out and fight that way. Like good never comes from that. And it's exhausting. And so we have to be able to take care of ourselves. And I think that's what's also really driven me lately too, of like, if I go to bed when I go to bed, then I can like really finish my book. If I go to bed and I eat, then I can stay focused. If I take care of myself and talk to you and like we encourage each other, then I know we can get through this project faster than, you know, we've even dreamed of. And I know that we can receive our manifestations even faster. So it's like, it feels odd to like feel happy, like you're saying, and feel that joy and also have an like an impact. It's almost like, I think for a long time, like activists have always been painted as being like too like it's almost like they're painted very negatively, like they're angry people, but that's not really the case. Like a lot of activists navigate the world from a very loving place. That is why they are so activated. And so I think like you just saying that is such a beautiful door to open for everybody, and like take a different perspective on what activism means to you, and realizing that these people who are activating and are out there with boots on the ground, like you can do that too. The love and compassion that you have can evolve and alchemize itself into an even bigger impact if you just allow it to, and you like are able to receive, which I know we've been working on. But like it's so huge. And I just want to say like thank you for pointing that out and sharing that, because I think even as, you know, femme presenting people, or me being a femme presenting person who identifies as Black and also queer, like my path also has unique experiences that are a lot more challenging. And so there's, you know, that sense of resistance of me just going outside and wanting to interact with other people because of that historical trauma and the fear, right? So then it's like we have to be able to heal that and still face the love within ourselves and know that it still exists and that we deserve that love, so we can go help other people and share that love and liberate other folks and souls energy everywhere. Actually, I went on a long tangent, but that just like thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. No, that everything you said was beautiful. It's a yes and situation. Everything that's happening in the world right now is a yes and. The Jewish people are hurting, yes, and Palestinian people are hurting, and freedom needs to like come. And it's all yes and. Everybody can hurt. Like so many people are hurting, and nobody's pain is being set aside because of it, but there's priorities that come into play for certain things, I think. And it's just a yes and we are existing with pain and sorrow and anger that's happening, and we get to exist with joy and happiness and dreaming. And it's not a either or situation. I think we get so closed in that you can either have this or you can have this. And I think the key to everything is a yes and approach. Like,
Yeah.
yes, this is true. And this is true, even if they sometimes seem like opposites.
Right. I love that. Thank you for, going into detail with that, because I think, this world has a tendency to be very divisive and feeling like we have to choose, but we can literally elevate ourselves if we stop choosing.
Yeah.
And we just start respecting each other and loving each other on a very collective and whole level and unconditionally, so we can actually make the change that we are wanting to see. So this has been such a magical conversation. Like,
so way over.
I know, I don't even care, because it's great. And is there anything you want to share, like, about your business or anything? I mean, everything's fucking evolving, so I don't know if you know what's going on. Yeah, whatever you want to share before we head out.
I don't really. I just, try to find some magic in your day. I think that's the little thing. And yeah, I mean, you can find me at Bookstand Publishing if you want to, learn anymore. But this biggest journey, like, this isn't really even about my business. This has been personal, and I'm so grateful for you. Like, we've talked about this, but I love you so much. And the work you're doing is so powerful and so important. And I hope people continue to see that and, continue to flock to you, because you're amazing. And I just appreciate the space to kind of use my voice today.
Yay. Oh, you're so sweet. I'm not going to cry on camera. No, I always cry. Thank you so much for saying that. And if anyone would like to contact Emily, I will put her information in the show notes. And I appreciate you, and I love you as well. And I cannot wait for this new project to officially be able to be spoken about, so we can share it with the world. And if anyone is needing a safe space held for them, they want to work on their inner child, they want to ascend, they want to truly release and align with their purpose, definitely let me know. All my information's in the show notes. I highly recommend doing a 60-minute fly with me session. It will literally change your life.
Confirm.
Yes, I am very intentional about the work that I share, and we go very deep and we heal very quickly, and it's just a really beautiful journey to start. Like, look what you're fucking manifesting now. So that will also be in the show notes. So thank you, Emily, for being here, and thank you so much for everyone to just thanks for being you, world, and keep showing up in a really beautiful light. And if you are enjoying this podcast, I really encourage you to become a subscriber. It really helps keep the podcast going and keep guests on the show. I really appreciate the link is also there for you to support. So I'm sending you all lots of love. Emily, thank you again. And I will talk to you all very soon.
Hey, if you're ready to ascend to happiness and live the life you've always wanted, join me in my Empowered Living Facebook group for socially conscious healers, witches, and spirituals, and sign up to get my free Empowered 5 Practices to Ascended Happiness guide. It's helped others expand their consciousness and soar beyond sight, sound, and imagination in just one day. It's the catalyst you need to embrace your magic and change the world. Just click the link in the show notes, and I'll see you in the group next time.